anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. First, the library director, assistant director, and staff, Ann McFate.
Yes.
Dimitri Kyriakis.
Yes.
Jeff Arnold.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Danielle Tawa.
Yes, hi.
Diane Brown.
Yes.
Deborah Lovett.
Yes.
And Sarah Breen.
Hello.
Everybody. And now I'll go through the library trustees quickly. Carol Thomas.
I'm here.
Thank you. Anna Giraldo Kerr.
Here.
Kay Cahill.
Here.
Rick Hardy.
Here.
Tom Harkins.
Here.
Myself here. And Jay Fialkov.
I'm here.
Great. And we've got some other participants. I'm going to quickly confirm that they can hear us. For the first item in the agenda, the financial reports and finance committee interactions, we're going to have Carol Smith-Fischetti, chair of the finance committee. Carol, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Thank you. And we've also got Joshua Levy, vice chair of the finance committee. Josh, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. And then for agenda item 12, for Library Foundation of Needham, we've got Joan Smith. Joan, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So I'll start the introduction. Good evening. It is now slightly past 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. And this is an open meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. This meeting is being conducted remotely due to the state of emergency in the Commonwealth and consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 10th, 2020. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded. This meeting will allow public comment by means of chat function only. For this meeting, the Needham Board of Library Trustees is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all participants are participating by video conference. On video conference, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to unintentionally screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Ground rules for the meeting. For effective and clear conduct of our business, for compliance with the governor's executive order, and to assure accurate meeting minutes, I will restate our ground rules. The chair myself will introduce each speaker on the agenda. The chair will invite members by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. To the extent practicable and within the bounds of open meeting law requirements for conducting a virtual meeting, we will keep the meeting style informal as we do when we meet in person. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And for any response, please wait until the chair recognizes you so that we do not speak over each other. Feel free to wave to get my attention. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Any member of the public signed into the meeting as an attendee may submit written comment or question via the chat after identifying his, her, or their name and address only. And the assistant library director will monitor the chat inbox and alert the chair to submissions there. The chat submissions will be recorded and become part of the official record of the meeting. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote, which is a requirement of the governor's executive order of March 10th, 2020. I now request a motion to automatically continue this meeting to Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. with the same Zoom ID number, our next regularly scheduled meeting, should any technical difficulty arise tonight to keep us from completing this meeting. So we just need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, and I'll do a roll call vote. Jay?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Kay? Oop, Kay? Oh, sorry. That looked like an affirmative statement, but
Yes, aye.
thank
Sorry.
you. Appreciate it. And Carol?
Aye.
Great. In that case, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda. We have with us today Carol Smith-Fischetti and Joshua Levy from the Finance Committee. We lumped this in together with the financial report, but I think it probably makes sense for Carol and Joshua to kick off the meeting.
Thank you. I'm turning on my video right now. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. You know, and I think Ann McFate will probably attest to the fact that we've been supportive of the library, but maybe not as supportive as Ann and the trustees have wished, just because there's this, you know, other sources of funds. And so we really have tried to balance what the library needs operationally and what the library needs in terms of new business initiatives. And so, but what we wanted to do after our budget deliberations this year is to just better have the board, a member of the board, come to one of our finance committee meetings and just really talk about strategically what you're hoping to accomplish with the library. I know when we spoke last week, there's a lot of things going on that I was not aware of. I didn't realize that you're working on a new website, which I think is fantastic. I understand you might be undertaking a strategic plan. So, you know, we wanted to understand what you're doing, what your kind of vision is going forward, and how that might fit in financially with what we need to support you in terms of town support for the library. So with that, Josh, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just add, I think some of the disagreements between the finance committee and the budgetary requests from the library have been recurring over the past several years. And so I think it's our hope that we can kind of smooth that over and come to an understanding so that this doesn't happen every year. Because I don't think we want to be in a position of disagreeing with you. And I think in addition to us understanding your needs, hopefully we can explain some of our positions as well during this meeting.
Great. So I think we can open it up then. You know, I'll mention very quickly that I had sent to Carol the state aid policy that we approved back in March of last year, right as the pandemic was beginning. And that lays out kind of some of the basic philosophy behind usage of state aid. The idea is that it's sort of a seed fund almost for use with pilot programs, non-recurring expenses, given the fact that it's you know, it's set by the legislature each year. We can't really count on it to the same extent that that we do with town funding. Rick, you raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I certainly welcome this in that, you know, in the, I don't know, 10 years I've been on the trustees, we've never had the members of the FinCom meet with us. And I really appreciate you doing this. You know, certainly in your off season, because certainly during your season, I would suspect that the FinCom is probably one of the hardest working town boards there are. I don't know how many nights you meet to go over every expenditure and every budget, you know, over the period of time, and it's quite daunting. And so to take time to do it, you know, in the off season is I think will be very useful for improving communication. So I was kind of just interested personally in terms of both of you. Are you you know, active patrons of the library?
I am there once a week at least,
Yeah.
returning and taking books out.
Yeah, just the books. Any other services that you use?
Physical materials. So books, DVDs, Blu-rays. I don't have a Nook or a file. You know, I don't do electronic borrowing. But when the library is open, I do go. Sometimes I'll use the computers. Sometimes I'll just sit at the library and read to use the facilities. So I'm looking forward to it being opened next month.
Yeah, yeah. Have you used the curbside?
Oh, all the time. That's
Yeah.
what I've been using this whole year.
Yeah, yeah. And Carol?
And I would say that I actually use when I can, because oftentimes there's too long of a wait, but I use the electronic books because we have a book club, and I try when I can not to buy the books. But it's difficult if they're popular books to check them out or to get them on a timely basis on electronically. So I use the library electronically. I have used it with my now young adult children lots to try to teach them how to do research. I actually, fun fact is when I was in high school, that was my job, to work at a library. And it really was a great job then because I knew the Dewey Decimal System like the back of my hand. And I would come, if I had a project coming up on, history, I'd commandeer the books and put them on reserve before anybody could get them. So I've always had a soft spot. So I use the library for research with my children. My children have studied there. They actually are, some of them are in graduate school now. When they're home, they still, not this year, but they had studied at the library. So we've made good use of the library. But I don't check out a lot of books to read just because of the time factor.
Yeah, yeah. So actually you use the overdrive when you're downloading the books.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's very, I love my Kindle, and so it's very convenient.
Yep. And we've seen, obviously there's been a lot of usage of the electronic resources, but the takeoff in that started prior to the pandemic. We saw audiobooks and ebooks accelerate. We still, obviously, we're still waiting to see some of the numbers from the past year, but there have been some very interesting trends. While physical book circulation has also remains pretty robust. We've got a lot of things going on right now. As you mentioned, we've got the website actually in our agenda today. We're talking about a number of these things. With Anne's retirement later this year, we'll be looking for a new library director, and that in turn will inform the process for our next strategic plan. I think what's really going to frame our requests, and for other trustees and library staff, feel free to chip in at any point, but what's really going to frame our funding requests for the next few years is going to be how this strategic plan is shaped and what we identify as our primary goals. And there's just a lot changing right now. In the near future, we'll have a new director, we'll have a new strategic plan, and there's also going to be sort of the new normal after COVID. We're certainly hoping that things go back to in-person, and we're opening up for in-person on June 1st, but we want to track those trends and be able to see what's happening and where the demand is. Okay, and you're on mute.
Yes, so, and just to add into the pot, in addition to the materials that the library lends, a huge part of the library these days is the cultural events, which we have pretty much nonstop lecture series for adults, book clubs, summer reading programs, story times, craft fairs. So when the library is actually physically open, it is very much books and way, way beyond that. It's a cultural center. And that's a ever evolving mission.
And will that part of your operation start to open as well, or?
We'll still be doing it through Zoom.
Okay.
We'll be virtual over the summer. I'm hoping come fall, when we are able to reopen the community room, we'll be able to do some in-person events, but we are looking forward that we're going to be doing hybrid events, both putting it out via Zoom and having a live action component.
We're all looking forward to getting back to the library becoming once again what it was before the pandemic.
Yeah. One other thing to know, oh, sorry, go ahead, Carol.
I was just going to say, with kids going back to school, there will be also, when it's possible, more of a demand to use the library for study space, just as Carol mentioned, her children did. And the other thing is that we were in the process of doing a space reutilization study. We actually have a contract with the Collins Center at UMass Boston to do that. But of course, due to the interruption, it wasn't possible yet to conduct the study, but you'll see in the encumbrances on the state aid budget, if you see that. I don't know if, I assume you have that today. Do you have that, Carol and Joshua?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that.
It's included as, it's a $12,000 contract for a consultant for space reutilization planning. It's a preliminary thing. If we actually go beyond, when we go beyond that, the thought was hopefully to get all this planned so that we could get new carpeting before it was totally, you know, the carpeting was totally beyond. But it's going to be taking a while. At least it's not been worn out this past year, except by staff going to get curb sign requests. But there's that, and there is also a staffing study that I think the trustees have pretty much unanimously agreed we need to figure out what our needs are, compare us to other communities. I believe I presented some of those statistics to the FinCom at the meeting of the library where you invited us in. But I don't think you cared for either who we compared ourselves to, or anyway, we will get a study done, I believe, and that will probably come out of state aid as well. So there was a lot of consulting fees that are anticipated. The strategic planner planning something to do with defining the role of the new library director, to do with the written space planning. There's several, there are probably at least 4. And then there's also one other project which has been on the back burner, which is revisiting the security cameras project, either to add more to the current system or to redo the system. And that I assume we'd be looking to state aid to fund as well. So there are a lot of these sort of one-time things, they're not every year, which is the reason I think that we feel that it's important to sort of earmark those funds for these special things that crop up only occasionally, and for emergencies, because the process of town financing, the calendar, the delay, it just isn't practical sometimes to wait a year and to take care of something that needs doing now. So all of those reasons, I think, are why we have come to you in the past asking for the same things which are expected library services. You would be howling if you didn't have your overdrive and couldn't get your electronic books. And I think that would be true for a great many patrons. It's an expected service. And so that, the OCLC catalog, the Overdrive Advantage, which makes more copies of things available, a shorter period of time, all those things are things that in our minds, I think, I speak for everyone, ought to be funded through a town appropriation, a budget, because they can recur year after year.
And to add to what Carol said, you know, Overdrive, this is something that's been taking off for a while. At one time, this might have been more of an experimental or pilot program, but it's kind of made that shift from seeing whether or not it works to becoming really a core part of the library services. And when I speak with my neighbors and ask them about their library usage and what they get out of it, one of the things that I've heard a lot over the past year is, well, I'm trying to take out ebooks or other electronic resources, but the wait, as you said, the wait is very long. And that's really a function of how much that's funded. And you know, how many different services and licenses we purchase. So, you know, in our minds, this has become something that is really critical to the library's mission and is an ongoing expense. So that's why we really include it in our budget requests.
And Rob, one thing that you mentioned to me maybe for Josh's benefit, you could speak to that, is that in the analysis that you've done, you thought that perhaps you have heavily reliant on part-time staff as opposed to full-time staff, and that
Yes.
affects your operation?
Well, it's, relying on part-time staff does tend to lead to greater turnover, which, can be expensive in terms of recruitment and training. And also just looking at peer libraries, we like to see what best practices in our peer libraries. A lot of times we look to libraries sort of around the 128 corridor, towns of a similar size. And I'm still in the process of putting these numbers together and comparing. The latest statistics that we have are for 2018. But comparing us to, I believe it was 15 or 16 peer communities. Hold on, I'm pulling this up right now. We were, I think, fourth from the bottom for percentage of staff who were full-time. Now, again, I want to go through those again and ideally get more recent numbers so we can really have the most up-to-date statistics. But what we've been seeing is that our staffing is more reliant on part-time. And that's one of the consultants that we'd like to get involved, is somebody to take a look at that, figure out what's the optimal staffing for our library. And once we get a better picture of that, that would inform, what we would reach out to you with. And Rick, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was looking at your statistics, and Rob, and you looked at a number of Route 128 towns of the similar population of Needham, and the average of full-time to part-time is 40% full-time, 60% part-time. Although there are some towns that have 60 to 70% of their staff full-time. Needham is a full-time staff is around 20%. Significantly lower. And what I found was when we were trying to implement the most recent strategic plan, the difficulty of relying on part-time staff is that it's obviously the full-time staff that has to do those sorts of things related to, let's say, a strategic plan and doing the research. And we weren't able to have that done primarily because, given the numbers of full-time staff, they didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do those activities when they're servicing the public. So many of the things that we were trying to do in the strategic plan, we were not capable of doing because we just didn't have the staff bandwidth to be able to do it. And when you're running, that's such a high number of part-timers, you end up spending all your time trying to plug the schedules to make sure that you have the coverage you need to maintain your operation. And you spend all your time doing that as opposed to doing anything strategic. So.
Yeah. And Jay, you had your hand raised as well?
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Carol and Josh.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. I'm not sure, Rob, also while you're talking about these preliminary studies where you've been evaluating our Needham as compared to other, what we would consider comparable towns, I don't know whether you've also shared with them some other, analyses that you've put together that, for example, based on a percentage of the town budget that was allocated for the library out of, I think, 14 or so towns, Needham was second from the bottom and substantially lower than quite a number of other towns. And for purposes of taking a fresh look at the financial situation. And I think similarly, we were near the bottom with regard to maybe this is what this is.
Yeah.
There was, I think, two categories, right? Per capita, and also you see, I guess, third from the bottom as a percentage of municipal expenditures. So I think that's information that's worth having. Perhaps it's related to the part-time versus full-time staffing, or perhaps there are other elements as well. It may well be that other towns have more money to spend on overdrive, so that the weight for ebooks is substantially reduced as compared to what we're looking at for Needham.
Yep, and just for your benefit, I'm just quickly putting up these slides again. These are 2018 numbers, but these are the ones that Jay is referring to. And Anna, you'd raised your hand?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Carol and Joshua. I wanted to add, I know we've been discussing numbers, which are obviously very important. You're the Finance Committee, of course, but I also wanted to incorporate the human element that has been mentioned here and there. I just want to reiterate the fact that the library is a community builder, is definitely the role the library has moved beyond books and downloading information, which is the basic. We're also building community. We are also very committed to helping people get educated about inclusion and equity. So those are programs that we're running, and all of that requires resources, whether it's human resources or it's financial resources. So I wanted to make sure that that is very clear, because it's at the core of the library's mission to build community and to engage with a community. There have been many outreach efforts that we've been doing over the years, and now they have morphed into more of a virtual effort. Some of our book club discussions have reached people overseas. We've had, dozens of people, and what Needham is doing, the Needham Library is doing, is really reaching beyond the town. So this COVID has given us this opportunity to enhance and strengthen our brand as a knowledge sharer and a community builder beyond the town. So that is something that's a brand that is strengthening our brand. So we need resources to keep doing that work.
Thanks.
This is helpful. I really enjoy hearing these things, and I know the library does engage in a vast variety of endeavors. That I'm not, engaged in all of them, so I don't have visibility into all of them. So it's really good for me to hear that. I think from the Finance Committee's perspective, some of the recurring questions that we have is when there's a request to move a pilot program that has been funded through state aid to the operating budget. Oftentimes the Finance Committee will ask how will the savings from state aid be used in the coming year? Because the Finance Committee typically just likes to know what new programs are going to be coming and how those monies are going to be spent when the operating budget is going to step in for that. So that's just one thing that's come up before, and maybe we can have those conversations to continue so that we, have we can see into the future what's going to be happening and what new programs are going to be initiated by the library. Another just financial considerations, I think the state requires that the town fund the library at least 2% greater every year than in prior years in order to remain eligible for recurring state aid funding. And so we just want to be, we always want to meet that. We don't ever want to not have the library receive state aid. So there's a minor concern. I guess I can't speak for everyone on the committee. I don't know how great the concern is, but there's some amount of concern that the more we spend in any given year entails a commitment to spend even more the following year. So that's not necessarily a problem. We just want to know what that's being spent on. So I think just transparency can help in that.
And I also think a strategic plan will help to inform that going forward. So that's positive.
And Rick, you had your hand raised.
Yeah. So this is tremendous in the sense that it would be good to have this to develop a process of ongoing communication between the trustees and the FinCom, not just during the budgetary season because there's too much going on there, but to do it in the off season and have this exchange of information. So I'd be interested in understanding, do you have an idea in mind in terms of developing a series of meetings with the FinCom and when and where and how often?
Well, we were going to start with, you know, just this one off season to see how that goes. And we're trying to see when, we're also waiting to schedule our next meeting because we have a town, you know, financing master plan that we're expecting to receive. And once we get that, then as a committee, we can schedule our next meeting. And right now we don't have that. So, and I don't think we're going to get to look at that until the end of May. So we're hoping early June to do that. And then I think that maybe, well, Josh, you can speak because you'll be the chair next year, but maybe we could do something in the fall, kind of pre-budget season.
Yeah, that would be terrific because I also want to point out that this, you know, you're talking about the strategic plan on a forward basis. But we've actually been doing 5-year strategic plans for a number of years. And in fact, the current strategic plan, which is just ended, is a public document. And we did, you know, having been a co-chair of that process, we did a whole series of outreach and numerous ways to reach to the community. And the strategic plan is based on the input that we received from the community. And it's been out there for 5 years, and the previous plan has been out there for 5 years. So this is nothing new. This is something the library has been doing on an ongoing basis every 5 years. So it's available, so you can understand. You know, maybe that is part of the issue. Is you've not seen the strategic plan, then you wouldn't see where these requests are coming from.
Yeah.
Because they come from a strategic plan that was created from the input of the community.
And Heather, yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And
I just want to make sure that you understand the formula for the increase every year. It's 2.5% of the average of the last 3 years. So it isn't really as high as you think it might be.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, that's helpful.
And Jay, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just one more point also. You're probably already aware, but you mentioned the new website. Then just to be sure that you're aware, you should know that we've obtained funding for this new website from the Friends of the Needham Library and from the Library Foundation. And so I would like to think that we get credited for finding that outside sources instead of getting penalized for making those sorts of arrangements.
Yeah, I understand your point. I think the library has a lot of outside sources, and that's to the library's benefit. From the finance committee standpoint, we want to make sure that we're being fair to all departments. So some departments may not have these resources available. It doesn't mean that we want to penalize the library. It just means that we want to understand how the funds are being used for the library, just as with any other department.
I think, you know, one thing that you'll find across all of these sort of other sources of funding, well, there are two things. One is that as a portion of the library budget, they're relatively small. They're not really enough to cover something that is critical to the library's mission or that is recurring. The other piece is that with the exception of the state aid, a lot of it is out of our control. You know, in the case of the website, the Friends and the Foundation were kind enough to chip in funds for those, but we certainly can't really rely on those for sort of mission critical things for the library.
Was that something on the website that you could have used certainly you could have used the town's resources for your website and it was just a timing issue, or is that not the case?
There were really two issues. One was that the town's website provider really couldn't provide the type of website that we have. Library websites are actually fairly specialized, and for the functionality that we wanted, the town's existing website provider couldn't provide that. And that's something that we worked through with Kate and Dave. The other piece of it is that by utilizing outside funds instead of state aid, that streamlined the process considerably, not having to go through a full RFP,
Mhm.
and allowed us to get the website operational. And, it's not operational yet, but we're certainly hoping that it will be in the next couple of months. We were just trying to get it up and running as soon as we possibly could.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so Carol and Josh, just to understand, am I hearing that when the library comes forth with its budget and budget requests each year, that it would be helpful to you to also see how the state aid is, what we're planning to do with the state aid? Is that what I'm hearing?
That is helpful for us to see.
Yeah.
Okay,
and that's good for us to know.
And also, as Jay and Rob were just saying, some of our sources, the Friends and the foundation and the trust funds, they decide what they want to give money to. That we can't tell them. We can ask, but it's their decision what they fund.
And for those private funds, I don't think that's really in the finances purview to assess either. I think it's really just the town's money and the state aid money that we really feel that we just need to have a better understanding of.
Yeah. One thing that's worth mentioning about the state aid is that, while we certainly look for good uses for it, they tend to pop up pretty quickly. And really that's the idea behind having the state aid funds there, is that it allows us to deploy that capital rather quickly without having to go through the full budgeting process. So we don't necessarily always have 12 months of visibility on what we're going. We might have some general ideas. If you look at the state aid that was included with the meeting packet, we've got encumbrances for the full amount of the state aid in there. But sometimes things do happen quickly, so we don't always have a year's worth of visibility. The other piece is that while we certainly don't want the state aid account to be going up and up and up and up and up every year, sometimes there is a holdover in it from year to year, because sometimes the things that state aid is spent on can be more expensive. I know, and I wasn't a trustee at the time, but I recall that when the new library building was built, there were some state aid funds that were used in connection with that effort that used up a significant chunk, considerably more than what you'd have in a given year. So that's why, sometimes there will be a balance left over at the end of the year.
I think that's understandable. I think there's no one way to use these funds. I think the Finance Committee just wants to be able to see what the plan is. And I know you have this strategic plan in place. Maybe we just need to sit down and discuss it more often.
I think that would be very helpful. And at the end of the day, it's all about figuring out which services provide the greatest value to the community. And the only way that we can do that, the only way that we want to do that, is to pilot them. We certainly don't want to be having experimental new programs being budgeted in, because then, as you said, that creates a recurring requirement to some extent with the state aid budgeting. It's much easier if we can try them out and see if they work. And some of these, we had some examples in the state aid policy of the initiatives that started out as pilots and were very successful, including some of the extended hours and a number of programs. But it really allows us to figure out what works best and what's a good use of town funds. Great. And Carol and Joshua, did either of you have anything else, any questions for us tonight?
I don't think so. And I'll just, I hope that one of you will be able to come to our next meeting, but I will let you know when that's going to occur. I'm not sure of the date right now.
Okay. It might make sense for us just to figure that out right now, who will be attending. I'm certainly happy to do so, or if there are any other trustees who'd like to do that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what are the rules in that if we had more than 3 people, that constitutes a meeting. But if it's a public meeting of the FinCom, then if more than 3 trustees show up, I don't think that would be a problem, because typically if you have we're a 7-member board, if we had 4, which is the majority, you'd have to publish that as public meeting. But if it's a public meeting in the FinCom, and that is published in the open meeting law, I think that wouldn't be a problem if we wanted to attend to multiple trustees.
In the past with other boards, even if it's in a public meeting with another board and there's more than a quorum, you would have to be noticed by both boards.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So maybe we just have send 3.
Yeah, I think that would be best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to go.
You're opting out? Okay.
And we're not going anywhere, remember? We haven't had a public meeting
True.
in a year and a half, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Convenience of your living room.
I'll tell you what,
No, I saw one the other night in town meeting.
That's right. That was the only public meeting I've ever run for the FinCom. It's good to have it happen.
You did a fine job.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll tell you what, I'd be happy to be there myself, and I'll reach out to the rest of the trustees, and we'll get some folks who can join that meeting without causing quorum issues, and we can schedule that as that approaches.
Great. I think that's great. And as I said, I will we'll figure out when the meeting is. It was likely at this point will be early June, I would think.
Great.
This would be great.
Okay. Well, many thanks to each of you for joining. Certainly feel free to stay on if you wish, but no need to if you'd rather not. And with that, we'll move on to the next item.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet all of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So from that, we'll move on to the financial report. And I'll turn it over to Anne for that. You're on mute right now.
Do you want to go back and do the minutes?
Yeah, I mean, we can, in the agenda, we've got the financial report, but we can certainly table that.
No, that's okay. You can do them. Well, you all got a copy of the trust funds. You now know what all the trust funds are and what they're for. And I gave those also to the FinCom people. And you, on your state aid account sheet, the second payment for the year is reflected on there. I was flabbergasted it was so high, but anyway, I'm sure we'll need it. And I also gave them a state aid use policy, and I gave them a trust fund report too. So they should be pretty much up to date on our finances. Do you have any questions on any of the materials that I gave you?
None here for the financial items. Okay, we can move on in that case to the minutes from the April 14th meeting that were circulated. Did anyone have any comments to those? No? Okay.
What's that noise?
And maybe you want to mute if that's trained by the library. I'm not sure.
It helped
Rob,
to, oh, sorry, Anna.
Yeah, I have a comment. I actually reviewed this minutes, but the list of attending, there's just a tab issue there. John Smith, Elephant President, the first page, the top where everybody's listed, all the attendees are listed, the last line.
Okay.
I thought I had fixed that, but it's still there.
Okay, we can correct that in the final. And do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, I will just quickly run through the list here for a roll call. Jay?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Kay?
Aye.
And Carol?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And we can then move on to the director's report.
Ron?
Oh, yes, Dimitri?
On the director's report, and I noticed this late in the day, Ann lists one of the new staff members that we hired. And I just want to correct it for the minutes as Jeff is taking them. It says Gina Fava. Her name is actually Favata, and that's spelled F-A-V-A-T-A.
All right.
That's in the first paragraph under personnel.
Dimitri?
Yes.
Would you send that to me? Because I got the spelling for their emails and key fobs off of the minutes.
Sure. I can
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, okay. It's Favata, but yeah. Okay. But that's the only, yeah. I just want to bring that up.
Okay. So,
And where, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
Yes, so Gina Favada, where is she coming to us from? And is she part-time? Is that?
She is part-time in the children's room. I'm trying to remember the library she worked at most recently. It was either on the South Shore. I mean, she did work. She had a pretty good experience. I don't remember. I apologize. I don't remember off the top of my head, but she had a good solid block of experience, and Paul and I were very happy with her accepting our offer. So, and she starts this Monday, May 17th.
Great.
Thank you.
And will someone make a motion to approve the gift list?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll do a roll call. Jay?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Kay?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
And myself, aye. And anything else to discuss in the director's report?
Not unless someone else wants to discuss it. If anyone has a question about anything that's there.
Yeah, I just a couple of comments. One is from Paula's standpoint. You know, I read the detail about the the pop-up window displays in Needham, you know, for the artists, and I never made a connection that you could also use it for the library. So I think that was a great idea. You know, I think that's really cool. And then her sleepover. You know, since the people can't be at the library and the kids can't be at the library, this is kind of a neat thing too. I just
every animal can be here.
yeah, from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And then just the last thing, I would be really concerned about taking a test, whether or not I would pass it, whether or not I'd be smarter than a chameleon.
I don't have anything more.
All righty. In that case, we'll move to building and grounds.
I do have something there. Hallelujah.
The elevator.
Working. We're all delighted that it's working.
Very glad to hear that.
We won't have to carry those book trucks up the stairs anymore.
Well, you know, now you can get your membership back at the gym and take its place.
And Anna?
Quick question on, I'm glad it's actually working. The elevator is working just in time for the opening, right? So are patrons going to be have access to the second floor?
Yes.
So, okay, so we're going to limit, I forget the elevator, number of people in the elevator. Are we going to?
We'll be putting a sign on the elevator, one family or one person at a time. And the family will include helpers and caretakers.
Caretakers, yeah.
Yep, I see.
One group
I'm so glad.
person at a time, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on building and grounds? Okay, in that case, I'll move to the statistical report.
Could I back up a sec?
Sure.
I thought I saw somebody working on the doors on the Rosemary Street parking lot.
Yes.
Is that fixed or is it still in progress?
It's now fixed.
So that could be, that's number 6 on this list of a work order that was pending, but now it's done.
Yes, it's now done.
Okay, I thought I had seen something going on there. Spies are everywhere. Okay.
No, it was fixed after the report was written.
I figured. Thank you.
Great. And on the statistical report, I know that it's compared against March of 2020, which was certainly an unusual month. Was there anything to note there?
Just that the digital circulation increased by 25% as soon as we closed.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see too, sort of the long-term statistics after things start to get back to normal. I know MBLC, and this is where I'm getting all of the data for the screen shares that I shared tonight. Their data only goes through 2018, but they've told me, because I inquired, that they're going to be putting both 2019 and 2020 up fairly soon. So we should be able to get some interesting information, both about us and our peers, hopefully in the near future. Okay, well, if there's nothing else on the statistical report, we've got an item in here for new business, or a heading for new business. I don't believe there's anything specifically to be discussed, though, under new business, unless anybody has anything else. Anna?
Question, I don't know where this fits, but I'm curious now, with the library opening and the concern that we had about the staff being vaccinated or not, that some of the staff not being vaccinated at the time we discussed this. And now that, the vaccinations have been opened and they're more available, is there a way, how is that progressing?
Very well. Almost the entire staff has been vaccinated.
Oh, that's great news.
Wonderful.
People who are still getting their second shot, depending on which vaccine they got, and others who will be going and be not quite done when we open, but pretty close to it.
Including the new hires.
The new hires I don't know about.
We don't know about the new hires. We didn't ask them that.
Can I ask if anybody is resisting getting a vaccination?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. And the new hires, 3 people in circulation started training this week. And as I mentioned, Gina Favida for Children's will start next week. We've not asked them about the vaccination.
I'm not sure I'm legally allowed to, but I did anyway.
I think people can self-report. You can solicit self-reports.
Well, I wanted to encourage them, and every time I got a notice about available places to get shots, I sent it to them.
Needham has a flu clinic tomorrow. I know Tiffany Zeich, the assistant public health director, sent that out and forwarded it to all the staff. So that's between 9 and 12 tomorrow morning, I think, in Needham. So if there are any staff that are looking for it, that's right in town tomorrow.
I heard this afternoon that only 17 people had signed up already, so it's pretty much available.
Wow. How things change in a month or two.
Yes, exactly.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And before we move on to old business, and there are a number of items under old business, was there anything else under new business to be discussed? Okay. In that case, we'll move down to old business. The first item there is the website. I know that, Sterling has encountered some level of delays with the website. Originally, we were scheduled to have sort of a beta reveal of the new website in late April, early May. Now it's going to be late May.
May 25th.
But otherwise, yeah, May 25th. It's still mostly on track. So I'll hand it over to Dimitri for the update on that.
Yeah, it's mostly on track. They're going to do a reveal for us May 25th. And that's the point that also start starting some training for staff with the different pieces of the website. But again, that's provided that we look at the reveal and we're all pretty much in agreement where it's going, that they've incorporated all the changes and tweaks that we wanted. But as you said, Rob, they're a little off from what they said initially, but because they've had other things come up and some changes they had to make, but we're not that far off. I would say by mid-June, we should hopefully have it mid to the end of June at the latest.
Great.
Have it how? Have it online?
Yes, have it be live. Have it be live and replace the
beta. Yeah,
the old one. Yeah.
Great.
But there'll be more. I mean, you know, this is the first step, May 25th, and then we'll progress from there, and we'll keep you all updated as far as how that's going.
Right. We certainly appreciate that. It's good to have an appropriate amount of time to work out all the issues in the website before it does go live. So, Kay?
Yes. So the issue of photos and video came up, and I check in with Dimitri. Is there something further that's happened in terms of that?
No, I was actually going to get in touch with you and Jay about that. I've not had a chance to do that yet because I've been getting these new folks on board and all that, but I will be after today. And
are they, because I imagine the website can't go live until
no, it can't.
Those images are available, right? So one of the thing I mentioned that the library is going to need to be what you might call camera ready when the date comes. And that's probably going to mean, you know, all the usual chairs and computers in place. So it has to look like the library. It's not supposed to look like an empty chasm.
Right.
So on the day a photographer, videographer comes, you know, I just want to mention that things have to be set up the way they're supposed to look.
For that, the good news for that is that Angel and I were looking at all the chairs today, and instead of moving them, we're going to put them under the tables and then put tape around the tables. So if you have to set up really quickly, it won't be too difficult.
Oh, that's good news. I also saw in the children's department, they want to take everything out and, you know, just so they know that at least for that one day, it kind of needs to be there.
I can communicate that to everybody. So yeah, we'll be all set with that.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to the next item under old business, which is the town FY22 budget. And for those of us who were there at town meeting, the budget was approved, including the amount for new computers. Not sure if we have any other updates on budgeting matters. Below that is a plan for reopening the library. We'd spoken about that a little bit earlier, but Ann and Dimitri, any other updates about the status of that, steps being taken?
Kate Fitzpatrick has reviewed the plan and given it her approval. We're still waiting for the Board of Health.
And the Board of Health, both Ann and I have contacted them about a couple of things we had questions about. But as of right now, we do know that Kate has approved that we can allow part-time staff to work part-time when we do reopen. So people that normally would do 3.5, 4-hour shifts can go back to doing that. The other questions we had, we're going to do a voluntary contact tracing. Area libraries are kind of split. Maybe now it's more 3/4 rather than half and half, but it's voluntary by just placing a clipboard or something, right? At the entrance, asking people to, and you've probably seen this at some area businesses or coffee shops where they have a clipboard and ask you to put your name and phone number. We're not going to chase after people to do that. It'll be voluntary. A lot of folks have privacy concerns. We know many area libraries are not doing it specifically because of that, the privacy concerns that patrons have. So that's what we'll do. That we've not heard back specifically in terms of guidance as to whether we should or shouldn't do it. Our understanding was that we should do it, or if we can. I mean, like Ann and I have discussed it, and it's going to be a voluntary thing. We're not going to enforce it. We'll have it there. If people want to do that, that's fine. If they don't, and we have not heard anything back from Tim McDonald about that.
Right. Are there any questions from the pages that I sent you?
Can you speak to the quarantining requirements right now? What has been implemented? Have they already changed, or what is the status?
We keep getting reports on quarantining. We began with a week, And then we were down to 5 days. Then we went down to 3 days. Now we're down to 1
We've
day.
actually eliminated it. Dan. I'm sorry. Just this recent, just today, we were able to catch up with the most recent check-ins, and the science and practice and common wisdom at this point seems to support no quarantine.
So starting today, there is no quarantining?
On the materials, that's right. Yeah, returned.
So you've gone beyond 1 day then?
Yeah, we went down to 0. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can update that. We're doing.
You can, yep,
we're not
as of today.
quarantining. Okay.
Today, yep.
Thank you.
And I know that I've already seen an article that my wife's parents pointed out to me in the Boston Globe, highlighting the reopening. And I've seen lots of social media posts. So thanks to everybody on the staff for getting the word out and continuing to get the word out as June 1st approaches.
Did you miss Channel 5?
Yeah, Channel 5 had us too.
Oh, they did? That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a couple of days ago, or last week, was it? Middle, you know, it was about 6:15 because my wife ran up and got me. She goes, "They're talking about your library." And it was just they're 90 seconds. Yeah.
Anna?
Could we upload that clip to the YouTube channel and to the website? I mean, I don't know
it's
how.
literally 1 or 2 sentences. It wasn't really much. You blink, you miss it. I mean, I know.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a.
It wasn't a video
spotlight.
No. It was just like, you know, and the Needham Public Library right nearby.
Oh, I see.
I forget how she phrased it. We'll be reopening June 1st. Details to follow. That's really all they said.
That sounds longer than a TikTok video, I have to tell you. But anyway.
I've never heard them advertise a library opening, I guess. I don't know if it was the first and I just didn't hear the others, but that was.
No, it was really, Gina, my wife was really surprised. She was, they just singled your library out. I go, well, they're in Needham, so maybe.
That's because Channel 5.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else on the reopening?
So you're all right with the plan? You don't have any terrible concerns? Okay, good. We're being very cautious and
good plan.
As things go along, thank you. As things go along, it gets easier and easier. And we think that by the time we implement this on June 1st, we may be able to do even more than we plan to do.
So
that'll be a nice surprise if that does work out. Kay?
So since we had the Finance Committee here today, I'm wondering going ahead, since there will I guess we don't know yet whether there'll be any actually in-person programs occurring between now, well, the fiscal year ends at the end of June, right? So there won't be any programming, but after that, does that impact the budget? I guess I'm saying, if we have no in-person programs, does that have an impact on the budget?
If you hire a speaker or a presenter like the Children's Room is doing, Children's Room is planning to have outdoor in-person programs.
Oh, where?
At Memorial Park.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they're currently waiting for the permission. I filled out a whole bunch of forms for each event, and we're waiting for the official word on that. I would also remind everybody that there is no line item in our budget for program. Everything we do for program is funded by either the LFN or the Friends, or as a donation for free. So there is nothing coming from the town per se when it comes to program money.
Or provided by a grant.
Or provided by a grant. So nothing comes from the town, so to speak.
I didn't
except
know that.
For what you put forward except for the MacGyver series. You do take trust funds for that. And also, if you decide to do anything for New Year's Needham, that also comes out of trust funds.
But don't forget, our time is involved in that.
Yes, my job is yes. So yes, that would be what the town is paying for, is my presence and everything.
And I should mention that Danielle and Gay and I today attended a Minuteman program. We're looking at devices that can synthesize live meetings with Zoom, so that you can have a live meeting, but also be able to record it and broadcast it in Zoom as well, because we anticipate going forward, not just us, all of the 45 libraries at Minuteman are anticipating this. So Minuteman Journeyman has set up, there's a device called an OWL, which is like a pod that has a 360-degree camera and 8 speakers and mics.
Yep, 8.
Danielle, right? Something like that. And there's another system we're going to look at too. So we're definitely looking at purchasing that. So hopefully, whether it's the library board or the Friends or the LFN or other programs in the library, that we can synthesize going forward when we do have people come back in. We're not assuming it's just going to go one day from, you know, just all virtual to all live. It'll have to be a hybrid. So we're kind of looking into doing that.
And especially because we've had such interest, you know, beyond Needham, beyond the state, beyond the country, like that would be something I'd hate to lose that.
Yeah. It's a good system. It will definitely work for the smaller section of our room. We're not too sure if it will work for the full room. And that is one of the reasons why we're going to be asking someone to come demo it so we can find out if it will work. Otherwise, we have started planning for a full room setup. So that is coming one way or another. We will be able to do it.
I think, sorry, I think Anna had her hand up first.
Actually, Carol was.
My question was about the a new system that would keep track of how many people are in the library at the time, at any given time. How is that coming along with figuring out what we need or how it'll be paid for, how much it'll cost? Are we going to do that?
No, because it costs about $2,000 and the limit has been up to, we can have up to 200 people in the library.
So we don't need...
Looking at our figures and patterns, you know, to spend $2,000 for something that might be useful for maybe a couple of weeks doesn't really seem to make sense. So we're not going to do that. We're not, I mean, we'll be, you know, we'll be around, we'll be monitoring. Just to give you a little bit of heads up too, the first 8 weeks, 8 Saturdays between when we open and August 1st, when the governor says that they might lift all restrictions, there will always be a full-time either supervisor or administration in the building. I'm doing the first Saturday on June 5th. And then throughout the month of June, you know, Anne, Danielle, other folks, and then through the month of July, all the full-time reference staff, each one of them will be there. We'll take a Saturday. So by the time we get to August 1st, hopefully we'll have a better sense of where everything is, but we'll be able to keep an eye on what. So, and for example, when I work that Saturday, I'll be off desk. I have my own work to do, but I won't be at the reference desk, but I'll be around the building. I'll be monitoring things, and all of us will be doing the same thing on each Saturday. So, which is the day we anticipate would have the most people, you know, during the week.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that that probably would cover almost all situations. That if that's our limit now, that if that's a rare day, that would be 200 people in the building at one time, including staff, of course. But you know, I think it's a good thing to keep in mind that they say that this is not the only pandemic we're likely to have. I mean, this is likely to be recurring in different forms, you know, in the future. So it would be good to know what we would need, and you know, maybe keep that in mind as something maybe we should have.
Absolutely, and we anticipate, you know, we can pivot as we need to, you know, but things seem to be getting better. 200 is a high limit, and we feel with having appropriately monitoring by extra staff member, you know, for the first few weeks, we should be okay.
Okay, great.
And next we'll go to Anna.
Thank you. On the hybrid approach, so that when we will have people in person at the library while you have, and that's connected to Zoom, right? That's what you said?
Yes.
Yes, it will be.
So we'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, hello?
Keep going.
I think that made background noise.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So my question is, will the Zoom be expanded to beyond 100 people? We've had that issue, and now if we have a broader reach, even if we have people in person, you know, the out-of-towners, so sometimes for certain events, we only have capability for 100 folks to sign up. At least that's been my experience with the programs I've been running. So are we considering, you know, upgrading Zoom?
So Anna, I can actually answer that, Dimitri, because we're about ready to do our renewal for Zoom. I've taken a look to see what it would cost us to do an upgrade. It's not cost effective for us to go up to the next level. to always mean that we could have 300 people in a room. However, we do have the opportunity to enlarge each one of the rooms to 500. And I expect going forward, we will be using Assabet regardless of whether we're doing an in-person room, in-person event, or doing it via Zoom. We're gonna ask people to register just so we can keep track of our numbers. And it's very easy to add additional capacity onto a room for a month.
So it'll be added as needed. You don't need to sign up to, is that what you're saying?
It's, you know, an additional cost per month. I think it's maybe $25 or $50 per month.
Oh.
Increase the size. It's adding an additional size to that room for 1 year is just not cost effective because we don't always need it. But using Assabet, we can keep track of all of our numbers, so we'll know when to increase it. And if we need to, we'll increase one of the rooms. And if we find one of the other departments is doing something big, we can simply transfer it over to that particular account for using that particular account's room, so they have the larger size.
That's great, because hybrid is here to stay. It's going to be a while before we do away with it. So that's great.
I believe, Diane, you had your hand up next.
Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to go back to one thing that Carol addressed regarding the real-time people counters. And from the research I've been doing in the network libraries, there are only 10 libraries allowing browsing without appointments right now. Believe it or not, a lot of libraries are being very, very cautious. And the Newton Library has a real-time people counter, and they only allow 50 people in the building at a time for 45 minutes. Lexington Library just started their real people counter opening. They allow 50 people. And the Sudbury Library, they have been in a phase 1 for quite a while, and they have had 25 people in. It will go up to 100. And I did contact them, and basically I feel strongly that we should have this. It takes pressure off the staff and provides a better feeling of security for the public and the staff. It costs money and inconvenience, but it's an investment for safety and security. It doesn't matter if capacity is reached or not. What matters is a better sense of security for the staff in the library. We can't have people walking around the library at all times knowing who's in what corner, who's doing what. And if they're allowing people to be in the library for a long time, longer than other libraries are, I think you need to think about that. And it's a sense of security. That's all I have to say.
So Tom is next.
Yeah. The question I had about Assabet, you have to register, right? But sometimes people like myself decide to join at the last minute or had forgotten about it. And then we try to register and they say registration is closed.
So Tom, that is when you email me and I send you a direct link.
Yeah.
Which I have on occasion. So it's not if you can't get something. We set it up so that you can call the reference department and we'll pass along the link if you, we usually set it to expire about 2 hours before the program. We could put it right up to the program time, but it's a case of we want to make sure people get the link sent out to them in a timely manner, which is why we stop it usually 2 hours before the program starts.
I see. Okay, good. Yeah.
If I could make a comment to Diane's, when she's speaking about the scanner for capacity. Sure. I believe that later in May, I forget the specific date, the capacity limits go up. And that's kind of what Ann and I are basing on, that after that date. And do you remember, is it the 21st or the 29th?
It's before we open, I know that.
Before we open, the capacity limit goes up and it allows us to have 200 people in the building. So Diane, I totally appreciate what you're saying. And if we were holding at what we are now at June 1st, that would totally make sense. But considering that the capacity limit is going to go up, we are going to allow up to 200 people in our building. That's where we're figuring that we're not, we'll have staff, you're right. We can't be in every corner of the building every moment. I understand that, but I don't think we'll ever exceed 200 people in the building, at least during the week.
And I will add to that no library that has allowed people in has ever reached its capacity.
Can I ask, if you don't have the limit, are you still enforcing the 30-minute time limit?
We're going to the 1 hour.
To 1 hour.
And Carol?
I had a question about, well, two things. In terms of cost of one of these real-time counters, is it a one-time cost, or is it like a subscription thing, or is it both?
It's a little
or
bit.
how does that?
You know, the initial setup with everything is about $2,000, and then there is a subscription cost and maintenance cost as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
is that much? Or
I don't remember, Danielle. I don't know if you remember.
Off the top of my head, I feel like it's a couple hundred, maybe.
Yeah. I just kind of feel, well, two things. One, Diane's statistics she was just giving us seem to indicate that probably the limits on number of people imposed by our neighboring libraries is not the maximum, but they've chose to impose something less. Maybe that will change when things open up, you know, by June 1st. I don't know, but it is a choice, I think. And it does impact, you know, comfort levels of staff and other patrons for that matter in the building. The other thing is if there is something that crops up, again, whether we have a relapse with this COVID or we have something else that comes down the pike, there's going to be a big demand for whatever this equipment is right then and there. And, you know, we're not going to be top of the list. I don't know. And then we know, just like that people counter was a very good, I mean, it served us in so many ways since we paid for that system, that just the people coming in to the library, it helped us with statistics to demonstrate how many people are using the library. But I kind of think from a safety point of view, it's not such a bad idea to make that investment in a real-time.
And Diane?
Right, I just wanted to say that I know the numbers of people in different facilities are going up in the governor, but I will reiterate that just because someone gives you a number, that doesn't mean it's right for our town. Other towns, and Newton certainly is a huge building. I grew up there, it's a huge facility, and they're being very restrictive. And they have been doing this for a while, and they are not yet going into a phase 2. But we have just started, and I think it would be better to slow down a little bit. If you want to go to 100 people and then increase it, surely want everybody back too. But we haven't done anything, and we're opening our doors and we're welcoming people. But I think we need to be a little more cautious. And if we have something to back us up with the capacity counter, it may help, because we are giving up curbside service. Those people will be in that building getting their books, whether they stay or not, I don't know, but it will be a crowded place. And if we need to up it in July or August, then that's great. Then things have worked out well, and that would be great news that nothing's happened, and increase the usage of the library, and it can happen over the summer.
Okay, and Deb?
Well, I just wanted to say, I do have pause as to some of the, there's a little bit of a try it and see element to not providing any counting or monitoring at the beginning. And I'm afraid that all of that problem resolution from the front door will fall on the circulation staff. Because indeed the front door, the Rosary Street doors are directly in front of the circulation desk. There's just not, they're not going to have the capacity to handle as many problems as come up. And I don't believe that the supervisory person, I mean, if the supervisory person is posted at the door, they may be an effective way to deal with how many issues may come up. But I'm just afraid that given that the access is right there, and on top of that, you do have quite a large crowd coming in for picking up holds, because this the notion that the majority of curbside pickups were achieved by people from the library staff going into the library stacks, that's a myth. The much larger number of pickups were originating from the hold shelf. I mean, at least 2/3, probably more like 3/4 of the curbside pickups came from the hold shelves, which was a result of increased electronic browsing with the pandemic. In addition to the digital downloads, once we instituted curbside pickup, there was a tremendous amount of electronic browsing. Now that we can expect to continue, which is a great thing because that's expanded people's uses of the catalog. But that means that there are going to be more people indeed coming in to the circulation department to pick up their holds. So it's going to be a very crowded area right there in front of the Rosemary Street entrance. And I would like to, it would be great to have as many preparations made to deal with the expanded crowds that we can imagine will be indeed in the library during that time.
And Ian?
First of all, I think that some of the numbers that Diane is using have been in use for quite a while because those libraries have been open quite a while. Now, I understand when libraries opened that a lot of people didn't come to them. They didn't want to. Now that we're getting so huge numbers vaccinated, perhaps our numbers will be higher. And stop making faces at me, Diane.
I can't, no, I'm laughing. I have to talk and I have to keep quiet.
Okay. I think that the person in charge for the day will be helping down at the circ desk. I certainly don't intend to throw all the problems that might occur on the circulation people. We'll be helping out. I'll be down there. Dimitri will be down there. We'll see what happens. And if it's a disaster, we'll change it.
I guess all we're saying is we're not saying no. We're just saying, let's see how it goes. And we can certainly pivot. And, you know, there is availability of this equipment. Danielle's checked into it. We have a quote. Let's see how that first weekend goes when we open. You know, we're not saying no. We're just saying, let's consider it.
Okay. And Kate?
And I think another thing to consider is that the issue may not be the total number of people in the library at one time, which the counter would tell us, but it might be how many people are in one small area at one time. So if 100 people are dispersed, it's not that big a deal. If 100 people are all standing by the circulation desk, and the counter wouldn't solve or address that issue.
There aren't that many people that come in here at one time. They don't just all pour in. They filter in and they filter out.
So look, just to be, you know, both Ann and I is just as concerned as all the staff are. We have been all this time, and we've been pushing the start date out as much as we can. We just feel at this point that by June 1st, a lot has improved, a lot is changing. It's changing every week. We see the governor giving an announcement every few days, you know, possibly lifting even more restrictions. All we're saying is, let's just see how it goes that first weekend, and we'll see. We'll revisit it for sure. We're not saying no, but we're saying maybe we don't need to spend that $2,000. That's all.
And if we thought this was dangerous, we wouldn't be proposing it.
No.
Diane, you've got your hand raised.
Diane, yes. Just for information, the statistics I gathered were from yesterday. I contacted these libraries and contacted them yesterday, so they are very current. And also, I'm just of the mindset of why wait until disaster happens and then go try to fix the problem. I would rather be proactive. I just don't believe that $2,000. I know it's a lot for a public. I've worked in public libraries my whole career. I understand it's a lot of money, but the library has sources, and we're not talking 10,000 or 20,000. I just strongly feel that. I know majority rules, but that's how I feel.
And Deborah?
Excuse me, I just wanted to, we did draw up some statistics of how many calls were received at the circulation desk. And during the month of April, it was 3,196 for a daily average of 127. So that's the minimum number of patrons that we could expect to access the circulation desk over the course of any one day. We typically would get over about 130 folks. So that's just one number. Combine that with all of the overflow from the people who aren't able to get into the children's room, we got to assume that overflow crowd is going to be directly in front of the circulation desk. There will be ways that there's intense crowding. I'm just thinking, if the total number is 200, we have very little control over how many people cluster in any one area. If the total number is set at 100 or at 50, then it's just like, you're not going to have the same crowds in any, clustered in any one area. Just a one approach.
And
Carol?
I'm just wondering if, it's a trustee matter. I know, there are funds that we can vote, whether it would be worth entertaining a motion. I don't know how the other trustees feel about spending this money, but there is money there's money that we could spend. I would just say two things. One, I think it's much harder to backtrack than it is to just start out a little bit slower. Even if it were like 100 instead of 200, it's always a, like a deflating thing to have to backtrack after you start something. And so I think personally, I would be in favor of just going ahead and, getting the system in place if it could be done in time. The other thing is, I was in a little different subject. I was hearing something on the radio today about droplets versus aerosols of COVID in particular. And hearing that some unexpected, what would have seemed like precautions turn out maybe to be not working out to be more, they turn out to be, unfortunately, make things more dangerous. And one of the things they mentioned was these plexiglass shields. Has anyone heard that or why that is? It didn't really explain, except that maybe some aerosols sort of get captured behind the shields, but it made me uneasy about some precautions that we think we have, whether they're really precautions or whether there may be a counterproductive.
Anne?
What aerosols are you talking about?
Sorry, Carol, you're on.
I suppose ones that have a virus in them, speaking or,
Oh, you're not talking about aerosol cans.
No, they're talking about the size of particles in the air that stay up in the air as opposed to heavier ones, the droplets that at the beginning they were telling us to worry about cleaning surfaces and all of that, disinfecting surfaces. These are much smaller ones, and so they float, they stay in the air much longer. Has anyone heard of that or?
Yes, yeah, I've read it that they're. But the other thing is too that with people vaccinated and staff is vaccinated, there's also the option of wearing face shields for anyone who's concerned. That adds another layer of personal protection from the aerosol. I don't know if anyone's tried face shields, but we've done them when going to the airport. And so that's another option for persons who want extra protection.
Okay, I can tell you that for the reference department, when we come out from behind the desk to assist people, we do have them for each of our staff members.
And those are very good protection.
So just one thing I'd like to add is that, we do have a general staff meeting tomorrow morning as well at 10:30. If Ann and I, it sounds like a lot of people are very concerned. Ann and I will revisit, getting this scan equipment. We'll certainly, I'm sure we'll hear more from the staff tomorrow morning. So, if it makes everybody feel better, Ann, we'll do it.
Well,
we have two hands up still. Anna?
Yes, well, we won't be meeting as trustees, we won't be meeting tomorrow. So I want to make sure I echoes Carol's comments. I support that. And if there is a way that we can, as trustees, help mitigate any concerns, I will be all for it. I just don't know what to do. Like, what do we need to have a motion in place, or we need to discuss it as trustees? and recognize what source of funding and so on? Where do we go?
I guess that'd be a question for Ann and Dimitri. You know, if as trustees we would like to approve funding for a counting device, would that come out of state aid or a different source? This does seem like the type of thing that might be appropriate for state aid. In that case, you know, and if you'd like to put a motion if we'd like to have more discussion about it.
I'd be curious to hear from, I know Carol has already spoken and I support her comments. So I'm curious to hear of other trustees, where do they stand?
Rick?
You know, this truly is in many ways an operational issue. And we have to sort of let the staff, you know, make the call, but we should, you know, have the ability to you know, make sure that the funding is there if they decide to use the equipment. But really, it's going to be, I think it's purely operational, not policy, and so they'll have to sort of figure out the best steps going forward, but afford them, you know, the necessary equipment should they need it.
Yeah.
So look, you know, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to recognize that Deborah's had her hand up.
I apologize. I didn't mean to. I think that's an old hand. Sorry.
Okay. I just want to say, so we recognize what staff and trustees are saying. Like I said, we'll have the meeting tomorrow. Obviously, it's looking like we can fund it from state aid. We can implement it. All I'm saying is we'll hear from the rest of the staff tomorrow as well, and we'll probably end up doing it at this point. It seems like everybody seems to be in agreement for it. So, and I think we'll use state aid money and we'll do it. And Danielle, after the general staff meeting tomorrow, let's put it into motion.
Tom?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think one thing is, you know, the federal government gave money to the states and the states are giving it to towns for COVID situations. Maybe this could be a use for that if it, you know, because it's for the safety, this device. So, I mean, it's only a few $1,000s, but but then the finance committee might like us using it for state aid.
Well, what happens? Whoops.
Ann?
What happens with that is you buy something and you keep your bills, you pay the bill, but you keep a copy of it, send it to the town hall, and they'll submit it to see if if it qualifies for federal government refund.
Okay.
It won't back into the state aid fund. It will be part of the town's money that just comes into the town.
And Carol, you had your hand up?
I guess I'm like to sort of think through what is the best way to assure that there is funding for this to be done right away, you know, to initiate it right away, if that is the decision operationally to do it. What kind of a motion do you need that we'll support this and we'll figure out exactly how much once you come back to us, but to go ahead if you feel that it's operationally what is wise to do?
Yes, and there is a heading on your state aid account, library equipment and services. That was the general catch-all, and that's where it would come out of.
So perhaps we don't really need to have a vote on this particular thing. It's just you could come and take it right out of there. We've already voted on that budget.
I wouldn't take anything out of there without getting your permission.
Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, good. So that solves that problem. Could I ask also that that you check with the Board of Health about this issue about plexiglass shields? They probably have more information about it, and there's no reason that the library needs to become an expert on this subject, but I would think it's a good idea to check, since we're sort of relying on some of that in the reopening.
Okay.
When you say plexiglass shields, do you mean the ones that come over your face, or
no, the ones that we have in front of the reference desk?
I assume they were talking in this interview about, it was with a scientist, about the the plexiglass shields that you have in front, you know, between you and the public, but maybe they actually were talking about these face shields that you wear at the airport and on airplanes. I don't really know.
I saw a news story about that too. I think it's the main plexiglass, like in front of a public service desk, or, you know. Okay. You're right about that. I think that's what I had seen as well.
Okay.
You see them in restaurants, and there's like a 2-foot plexiglass thing between tables, and you look at that and it's like, that's not stopping anything. Realistically.
But what I heard is it makes it worse. It's not that it doesn't help, it's that it makes it actually counterproductive. It's worse. And that's what I was kind of taken aback by.
Okay. We'll check with Donald about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, you had a motion on the floor. Would you like to withdraw it, given that we don't need a vote to specifically appropriate or set aside state funds for this purpose?
Yeah, I was hoping that Carol would make the motion if needed. So I was just supporting her. So I didn't consider that a motion. It was more a comment, but whatever, I withdraw whatever needs to be withdrawn.
And you said something?
I think you do need a motion.
Oh, you think you do? We do. I'm sorry. I thought you said that you thought we didn't, but in that case.
There's heading on here that you can take the money from, but you should authorize us to do so.
Okay.
Okay. May I make a motion then?
Absolutely.
I move that we make available funds from the state aid account for this virtual, what is it? What's the name of the equipment?
That's a good question. It's a scanning, it scans capacity of a building.
The capacity counting and
capacity monitor.
Capacity monitor in for real time. If it's determined that we that is a good operational move to make upon your reflection and discussion of it, and up to several $1,000s, say $3,000, if that seems to be adequate to the job.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, I think the best way to do it would be to a dollar amount of not more than a certain dollar amount.
Up to $3,000, as I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
We should say that. Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
I'll do a roll call. Jay.
Aye.
Thank you. Rick.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Anna.
Aye.
Kay.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay, looking at the time, I'd like to move down to the next item on the agenda, which is the Equity and Inclusion Resolution. Do we have any updates on that?
Not too quick, nothing planned. There was one email that I received from a patron asking about some art. Oh, maybe that goes under the art program. Remember the one that I sent to you, Kay?
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe that will be under, but equity and inclusion kind of goes through, it gets into intersects with many of our programming. So maybe we'll discuss it then.
Okay. In that case, we'll move on to the FY 2017 to FY 21 strategic plan. The first item under that is a report from Kay for the strategic plan programs and services goal.
Yes. So for programs and services, needless to say, saw a lot of changes in the past fiscal year. The main strategic goal was the library will provide programs and services that reflect the community's needs and wants, focusing on all ages, embracing diversity, inclusion, and offering lifelong learning opportunities. So meeting just this essential objective became a major challenge in 2020 as the library was forced to close its doors in March, requiring the staff to rethink nearly every aspect of how they deliver programs and services. Following an initial pause, the library began to innovate new ways to deliver programs, services, and embrace new technologies in order to hold their story times, book clubs, lecture series, arts exhibits, and to provide library materials and reference information. Even the most basic service, such as the borrowing of books or library materials, required a complete retooling. The result of the staff's innovation was the popular and successful curbside pickup program. Another goal under that subheading is offer adult lifelong learning programs that reflects hobby interests, lecture series, author talks, and cultural programs. To meet the goal of offering adult lifelong learning programs, staff employed technologies, including Zoom, Alphabet, Interactive, YouTube to run the book clubs, lecture series, and art exhibits. The MacGyver series, the Friends program series, and the Diversity Inclusion book group, among others, all went on to Zoom, sometimes attracting more people than when they used to be held in person. In addition, some new innovative programs were held online, such as a Mix Your Drink class hosted by a mixologist, something that could never have been done in person at the library. The closure of the library prompted the staff to consider how to raise public awareness of the deep well of online resources and databases, and a method called Niche Academy was put in place to make tutorials available. In the children's arena, story times, summer reading, craft sessions all gradually resumed with the use of Zoom, YouTube, and Alphabet. The children's department provided an imaginative array of programs given the constraints of the pandemic. One interesting example that I noticed around town was the Story Walk program, where laminated children's books are posted along nature trails in Needham. The young adult experience may have been the one that suffered the most impact from the pandemic. The usual busy after-school gathering of teens was no longer possible. The young adult librarian reported that the attendance tended to be somewhat low for the variety of online teen programs that were offered. A couple of bright spots included the young adult Instagram account, which attracted 930 followers, a new account. Their weekly craft and chat program attracted middle schoolers who taught each other how to do crafts. The young adult librarian suggested that a separate Facebook page might be good, whereas because the teens tend not to want to go onto the page that's advertising the kiddie stuff. So that was her suggestion. Friends and Foundation supported many of these activities throughout the year. The lack of outdoor space on the library grounds impeded the possibility of hosting activities outdoors. I was told by staff that some attempts to schedule activities across the street at the Memorial Field ran into difficulty because of competing uses for the field, but it sounds like that may have changed, because I heard tonight that there's going to be some programs over there now, which is great. So another item is increased programs related to reading for all ages, such as book groups. The staff successfully sought ways to continue the summer reading programs and the book club programs with the use of technology. Another item, meet and partner with community organizations, town departments, schools, and local businesses. Children and young adult librarians continued their outreach with the school librarians, but outreach to other organizations around town was largely impeded by the pandemic. Deliver at least one outreach program in a location outside the traditional library. Once again, the pandemic curtailed this sort of in-person programming. One exception was the Story Walk program that I cited earlier. And there may have been others that I'm not aware of, but reach out and engage to groups who traditionally do not use the library. That process was largely on hold during the pandemic. Formalize and institutionalize processes to establish, sustain, and beneficial library partnership related programs. That process was largely on hold. Another item is enhance the website and online presence to promote resources and services available. The shutdown of the library building highlighted the weakness of the current library website, and as it became the virtual front door to the library. And as we know, the trustees and the staff worked together with the Friends and the Needham Library Foundation to hire a design firm to create an attractive and functional new website, and that process is underway now. The last couple of items of developing continuing partnerships with other agencies. Those were difficult to do during a pandemic year. Lastly, assess customer satisfaction annually to determine level of service and needs for improvement. The library staff continues to informally collect and discuss input from patients. In particular, patrons expressed great satisfaction with the curbside pickup program. Also one final item was train staff to provide an increased level of awareness. This was a stellar year for that. The library staff and trustees participated in 126 trainings, workshops, seminars, and other initiatives designed to raise awareness of systemic racism and injustice. The staff supported several programs designed to encourage understanding of racial issues, including the Diversity Discussion Book Group, the MacIver Lecture Series, and also the online Black Lives Matter art exhibit. So that's what I have for programs and services. Yes. Oh, Rob.
Yeah, Carol?
Kay, could you probably have that in notes or written form of some kind. Could you forward that to the trustees?
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was going to appear in the packet, but I realized I probably didn't make that happen. So I will do that.
At some point, somebody's got to, and to Jeff, yeah, somebody is going to have to write up the final report. So, conglomerate all these mini reports for different sections.
I'll distribute it to everybody.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kay. Moving on to the next item under old business, we've got the roadmap to achieving strategic actions, specifically for staffing. At last month's meeting, we discussed potentially getting a consultant involved with determining staffing levels. I believe Dimitri and Rick had discussed.
Yeah, we have, and we've identified a.
Did either of you have any update on that?
Yeah, Rick, go ahead. You were.
Yeah. So Dimitri and I have met. We've identified a consultant that has done this work before, has done it for a number of organizations and libraries, and we think that with the advent of a new director, it would make sense to delay this until the new director participate in the process. No sense in doing it and then have that. So we're ready to go once the other pieces fall into play.
Okay. Rick, do you think that this might happen in parallel with, to the extent we have a consultant for the next strategic plan, we'd have both of these processes happening at the same time?
Yeah, conceivably, maybe we would offset them. That if we were to achieve, if we establish objectives from a strategic plan, then we'd have to determine what's the optimum staff number and way to be organized to support the achievement of those goals. Just that Dimitri and I have not talked about this, but off the top of my head, that may be the way to go.
Yeah, the consultant did write up sort of a synopsis of what they would do, and I sent it to Rick. It would be more beneficial once we have a new director to pursue it rather than try to do it in concurrently along with getting, a new director, a search for a new director. But.
And perhaps in the meantime, I'll continue refining the statistics. I want to, my staffing numbers just compared just purely number of part-time versus number of full-time. I'd like to refine that. And Anna had suggested this to compare full-time staff versus full-time equivalents. That's probably a better measure of, what percentage of hours are provided by full-time employees. So I'll continue working on that. And certainly to the extent anybody else is speaking to peer libraries, it would be great to get their thoughts and strategies on staffing balance as well, because it's always interesting to hear what other folks are seeing and running into.
The only thing I do want to add is the consultants that I looked at, the one that has sent us kind of a synopsis of what they would do. They've become a little familiar with Needham because they did something like this for a synagogue in Needham. I don't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but as we were talking about it, they said that they just got to know Needham quite a bit over the last few months. So they nominally know about the library and I've gotten to know the community.
Cool. So unless there's any discussion on that, I will move to the next item under old business. Again, under the strategic plan, marketing and outreach. Is there any update on that? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on to the next item. There's an item here to discuss the new strategic plan. My understanding is that that is sort of being tabled until a new director joins. Anything to mention under that for Jay or Dimitri?
No, not right now.
Okay. In that case, we'll move on to discuss the retirement of the library director and the process for selection of a successor. Kay and I have set a date to meet with Kate and Dave to discuss the process. That's going to be occurring within, I think it's, was it the 19th, Kay?
Yes, the 19th.
Yep. So we'll be meeting with them at that point, and just discussing the overall plan and the timeline for that process. Our hope is that, you know, we can hit the ground running. The first thing, and we've already kind of previewed this with them, the first thing we'd like to do is set the job description, take the existing one, modify it as necessary, to really reflect what the position is. And I think we've got a good starting point, but there are a few tweaks that we'd probably want to make. And then go from there and figure out who's going to be part of that process, how it's going to be run, what the open meeting law implications are. So that will be kicking off in just over a week. And we'll be sure and provide updates to everybody on a regular basis as that moves forward. Moving to the next item, we've got the Library Art and Exhibits Committee report. Carol?
I just wondered, there was some talk about, there's someone who knows how to tune up the job descriptions. There's some sort of a consultant. Wasn't there mention of that at our last meeting? Am I wrong about that? Maybe I am.
I think, Anne?
Maybe that I said that all our job descriptions have just been upgraded, not upgraded, but reviewed by a company that recommended the pay scale that was just passed. Mm-hmm. And so we haven't seen any of those job descriptions except the ones we wrote ourselves. So we don't know what their final choices were.
The HR has those. So when they implement the new classification and compensation study results on July 1st, I would imagine whatever new descriptions they've come up with should become available at that point.
Rick?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure the MBLC has a generic or a standard job description. We could just compare, make sure just to do the due diligence in terms of whatever the MBLC has as well.
Yeah. I see that there is a program upcoming where they're asking for input from the staff trustees that have recently, or administrators that have recently hired a new director in the last 5 years to kind of update the handbook on that subject that the MBLC already has. So, you know, that'll be kind of interesting. I don't know if it'll come in time. It may not. But at least there are resources already out there from the MBLC about job descriptions, et cetera, and how to go about that process.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's true. Carol, I checked in with the MBLC and they did, you know, they're doing this, that's part of the process of updating. So it's not, that program they're doing is for people who just have already hired recently, so they can gather information to put in their plan. But also we do have a bunch of, Jay was immensely helpful in gathering lots of resources and examples of director of job descriptions. And so we're gonna, and thank you, Jay, for that, all that background information that you forwarded. And once we meet with Kate and Dave, and we'll get that process underway in terms of the job description. Rob, do we want to at what point, I guess you would say, do we want to get input on the job description from the trustees?
I think it probably makes sense to go ahead and get input now, or you know, within the next week. I think we'd already circulated a draft of the job description, the sort of existing draft, which dated back to 2016, and we've gotten some comments back on that. But I think perhaps what either you or I, and I'd be happy to do this, might do in the next week is update that job description based on the feedback we've received so far and circulate a new draft to the trustees for their review.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't have the input from everybody, but I'm certainly happy to collate it if someone can forward it to me. I don't know who has it.
Okay, and Rick?
Yeah, and just I just want to thank Jay, his suggestion on those 2 books. I think that would be a very worthwhile activity to do as we go through this. So yeah, Jay, thank you for that suggestion.
Yes. Anna?
I recall during our last meeting that there was a 2020 job description, and I recall you mentioning there was one. Mm-hmm. Is that the copy that we're working from?
Not available yet.
Oh, so we would want to keep that in mind as we're working with a 2016 copy. I don't know how much of a difference there might be, but you know, just to keep that in mind.
Yes, we would like to see the new one.
I did ask HR for it, and it's just not there yet. And I just checked the website, 2016's job description.
Do you think, based on the process, and that there's been a lot of changes between the two, or do we just not have any visibility?
There have been some changes, yes.
Dimitri?
I was just going to say, as I said before, I think the town isn't going to release any new job descriptions until they implement the new plan on July 1st. So to Dan's point, it does exist. HR won't give it to anybody yet because they're not giving any of the new descriptions. Everything's been upgraded and reclassified. So it might be worth your while to reach out directly to the new director of HR, Chuck Murphy-Rumboletti, because Rachel Glisper is leaving at the end of the month, and as of June 1st, he's the new HR director. So you might want to make him. I don't know how much Kate and Dave have communicated with him, but from your perspective, you might want to reach out to him, just let him know.
Okay, and certainly something we could do is we could proceed with the existing 2016 one, mark it up as we see fit, and then once the new one comes out, to the extent that the posting hasn't been made by that date, we can see if there's anything useful in it that we wanted to incorporate. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, I see that it's 9 right now, so I'm going to move through the next items. Next up, we've got the Library Art and Exhibits Committee report.
Yes, so I need a vote because Gail has done a great job of recruiting a local painter, Mark Richards, to show his work in person or actual artwork on the walls when starting when the library opens. And he's applied. And Gail, did you have that you wanted to, were you able to screen share and show that to us?
It's there.
Nice.
It's there. Oh yeah, okay. So he's a wonderful local, really talented landscape painter. And
yeah.
So
we've had him in the past. This is actually a combination of 2 different exhibits he's got, because I told him that he had a big wall to fill.
Yeah, we do.
Will these also be featured on the new website?
Yes, they will, as soon as I have the ability to put stuff up on the new website. It will indeed go up on the current website just so that we have a placeholder for it, but yes. Awesome. I'm taking delivery of the art in 2 weeks, and it will be up when we open up June 1st.
Okay.
Great. So I move that the trustees approve the selection of painter Mark Richards to display his art starting in June in the library.
Second.
All right, I'll run through the roll call. Jay?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Kay?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
And myself, aye.
And so we had one other item. I don't know, Anna, do you want to describe the suggestion for the idea for the Asian art portraits?
Yes, and this is this comment or feedback from the community is representative of several that I've been getting from different sources, particularly from the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, the AAPI community, and they're concerned that they are not, their community is not represented in town. And so they wanted to engage the student population, the Asian American student population in the high school, and have an art exhibit for Asian Pacific Islander month, which is in June. No, in May, I'm sorry, it's May. So they were okay, let's do it for June. So they sent an email, which I mentioned, I sent to a copy, I forwarded to Anne and Kay, and they're hoping to engage the significant, I mean, they listed some names and they listed some ideas there. So it's just, I'm getting more information from different community groups about how are we going to be represented in the library. So maybe as we go forward with art exhibits, we want to start bringing that lens in as well. Not necessarily we have to only do that, but maybe in parallel or maybe alternate. So that because that's going to be coming up more and more.
Yes, absolutely. And we do have our Sam Williams, who displayed his Black Lives Matter exhibit online, is waiting to go in person when he has the opportunity. So, we will, I guess, at our next art committee meeting, we'll I'll get some more information about this Asian Pacific Islanders exhibit by the high school students, and we'll probably go ahead with it.
The idea is to that'll be great. The idea is to be more proactive about it as opposed to reactive and just make it a one time, maybe build it into the calendar, right? Women's month is in March, Hispanic Heritage is in September, maybe other communities.
Yes. I have Native American, we're working on Native American display for fall, perhaps, Yes,
and that's only one lens, but we could, we could start building from there.
Absolutely.
And Jay, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Kay, did you ever look into that Front Step projects, that photograph series that was the subject of a big article in the Needham Times?
Yeah, our committee, we didn't really go down that route yet. It's an interesting thing, but it's, we were looking for more, really what we were looking for people of color. And so, that's a little bit different. That's more of an international thing, which is, there's no reason we couldn't show that. We just haven't gotten there yet, I guess I would say.
Okay.
There is actually, Jay, to that question, there is a Needham version of the Front Steps project. There is an international, there is a,
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And in one of the public service announcements when to encourage the community to vote, I'll see if I can find a link. They're actually diverse families whose pictures were taken through the front page. So there's a sampling. If you will have to talk to the creators of the project, if you want, I can make an introduction. I know them both.
Sure.
My sense is that many of the pictures were taken during the pandemic, and so probably the timing would be at some point not that far away from the quarantine, perhaps.
They are also going to be donating, I think, a book or two to the library. That's part of their plan. So that will be available for people to look at the book.
Yes. Okay. Definitely sounds excellent.
Anything else for the art committee? All right. In that case, we'll move on to the McIver series. Carol? Oops, sorry, you're on mute.
There is nothing to report on that.
Okay. Any update from the Friends? Jade, did you have anything?
I don't think there's much to report other than they were, giving some consideration as to whether they should be updating their website also to coincide with the, update of the library's website. So, and I think in connection with that, a representative of the Friends may ask to attend the beta release of the library website to get a feel for what that's looking like, if only to compare it to the current Friends website and think further about whether arrangements should be made on that front as well. Other than that,
okay.
they're excited about the book sales perhaps coming along soon. I know hopeful that the community room will be made open and chairs released from the community room so that at least hybrid presentations of some sort might become, perhaps over the fall, a reality.
Okay, Anne?
They were going to have a pop-up book sale last Saturday, but they couldn't risk the rain. They hope to have one this Saturday if the weather is better.
Okay, great. I'm sure there's a lot of pent-up demand for that. Joan, do you have any updates from the LFN?
Yeah, I'll just update you on the endowment. It is now at $1,757,639, just to give you an idea of where we're at.
Okay, that's great.
It.
It's a good update.
Yes.
In that case, I would open it up for any trustee comments. Okay. Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We almost closed on time. Next time I'll shoot for 9.